you want to learn more about effective management, head over to mattsingers.com and sign up for my free management training.
Welcome to the Mad Singers Management Podcast from madsingers.com, where entrepreneurs and business managers learn and share. If you like the show, don't forget to leave a review.
Hello, and welcome back to the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Natanya Dowell. Welcome, Natanya.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I am super excited for today's episode. As usual, we're going to talk about management, and you have a great background in management with higher education. Before we jump into all this, can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you've ended up where you are right now?
Absolutely. Well, again, my name is Natanya Dowell. I am a wife and mother of 4 girls and 2 puppies. My background was in higher education for 15 years, where I led a campus here in Atlanta, Georgia, and oversaw a really, really big team. In the midst of the pandemic, our campus actually closed. I didn't, share that with you before. Our campus closed due to COVID. And at that point, I decided I was ready to finally take that leap and make a shift in my career. So even though I had spent, a lot of time educating myself and working my way up the corporate ladder, so to say, I really wanted to go into full-time entrepreneurship just to provide myself with a little more freedom and flexibility for myself and my family. So now I am actually operating a virtual assistant agency where I help small business owners learn how to delegate and really operate in their zone of genius.
Perfect. I love it. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I work with most managers and business owners on today as well, right? Like delegation is when you're not used to managing people, letting go and learning to delegate effectively, it's not an easy ride. How do you go about doing it? How do you go about teaching managers how to do it? What's sort of the secret sauce for you?
Well, it depends on who I'm speaking with, because that's always a touchy area, and it's even more touchy when it comes to business owners. Like, it's very different in corporate where, you kind of have these guidelines and people kind of have to just follow suit. With business owners, they develop their businesses, and usually as solopreneurs, and the businesses are their babies, and they are very attached to them and very emotional about what they're doing. So, once we come in and start assisting them in their businesses and taking on more of management roles, sometimes it's very hard for them to let go. So it's really kind of holding their hands through the process initially and building that trust with them and letting them know that they have kind of become the bottleneck in their business. If they're not truly able to delegate and trust someone to take their vision, expand upon their vision and actually help them to grow, then they're kind of going to become stagnant at some point. So it's definitely a process. And depending on the person, how receptive they are to it, sometimes we're able to kind of hit the ground running, and we have that conversation about trust. We have the conversation about them operating in their zone of genius. And that's a whole process in and of itself, just kind of like figuring out what their zone of genius really is. They may say one thing, and then once we start working together, I realize, okay, it's something else.
Totally.
But helping them to really hone in and focus their attention there and understand that my team, because we have a understanding of how to operate small businesses and how to operate on a large scale level as well with my background in corporate, they're able to kind of, feel at ease with being able to delegate to other people.
Yep. That makes sense. That makes sense.
Mhm.
What's often the biggest problem, or how often do you see? I mean, what I see with a lot of business owners is that you definitely have the delegation struggle. I think a lot of the time, one of the core reasons I see with the delegation problems is also the fact of how they build the business, right? Like entrepreneurs are very good at reaching out to everyone and trying to be everything to everyone all the time, and that's obviously makes it significantly more difficult to build a business, right? Because it
Mhm.
means that you're involved in everything as the business owner, because you're trying to do so many different processes and so on. So how often when you go into a business do you find that the business model is already set and running well? And how often do you see the business model and how they've structured their service offerings is the bigger problem than probably delegation itself?
Oh, to be really, really honest with you, I would say the latter um would be the higher percentage, maybe 80%,
Yeah,
because the solopreneur, small business owner, has really been focused on doing all the things.
yeah,
So it has been very tough for them to sit down and really get policies and procedures in place. And if you do not have those, you don't have anything standardized in your business, it's very difficult to delegate. It's very
yeah,
difficult to share responsibility with someone because, even if they get to the point of saying, okay, I'm going to share responsibility, now they've kind of just switched where they're spending their time. Instead of spending their time doing all the things, now they're spending their time trying to train someone off the top of their head, instead of being able to provide them with the SOPs and say, okay, this is what I need help with. And, just really being able to duplicate themselves in the business, and not only duplicate themselves, but gain an extra skill set from that person that has now come to help them. So that has been a huge struggle. Sometimes when my team and I go in to help a business and they're in that situation, we'll start off by just helping them to kind of do a brain dump, honestly, like having those conversations to figure out, okay, what are they doing? How are they doing it? And what type of results they're getting from it? And then analyzing that to see if things are great as is, or how can we help them improve this process, and then standardizing it for them. So, again, it's a process, but it helps them to get to that point to where they can clearly see where they can potentially start delegating, and they can kind of get to that point to where they can take a deep breath and then release and know that everything is going to be fine. So definitely the latter is the higher percentage. Every now
yeah.
and then we do come across a small business that has been running, as a one person show, doing all the things that they are fully set up for success.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's interesting because again, like a lot of time when people come to me and like they're like, oh, I'm struggling to delegate and all that sort of stuff. I've started going the other way around, and instead of focus on delegation first, actually looking at the actual business model and just seeing, is the service offering clear enough? Are they simple enough? Are they limited enough? If you have a business with 3 people or 5 people or 10 people and you're trying to deliver 25 different services, that it's rarely going to work very well, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
interesting, interesting. So cool. So when you go down the route with people and you're sort of going through the delegation track and everything, how do you then make sure you get success? Like what do you do to ensure that you have a relatively good outcome from the engagements and so on?
Well, I think the first thing, and honestly, this could be transcended across, whatever you're trying to do, whether it's, delegating or something else in your business, is developing or really understanding what the results you desire to have are. So, kind of figuring out what their KPIs are and using that as a measuring tool. to say, okay, well, what is it that you really, really want to accomplish? For example, if it's a coach that I'm working with and they are desiring to, have a certain amount of outreach done, or they're desiring to have so many leads come into their business, or whatever, they're trying to achieve, we need to know what it is in a tangible way so that we can help them to achieve that. But like if they don't know, and it's just kind of operating, I hate to use this word, but I can't think of a better term right now. They're kind of operating willy-nilly, and so again, it's another conversation, and having it in a way to where they still feel in control, they still feel respected, and as they are the CEO, but framing the conversation in a way to where they understand that we are helping them to help themselves. So by drilling down into their thoughts, into their business actions and all of that, we can kind of get a better understanding of what their actual goal is. And then we kind of work backwards. So once we understand that, we can work backwards and help them to develop a process to get that done.
That sounds great. Great. And I think that's fundamental, right? Because in the end of the day, when you're working with clients, it's always a little bit not politics, but when you work with any people, and this is the same in management, right? It's always about getting the right outcome, and sometimes you need to jump around the same thing 7 times before you actually. Sometimes it's the way you say something or the way you do something. Suddenly people understand, or suddenly they realize how it works and how to operate it, right?
Well, I think for myself, because, I'm also a business owner, so I get it. I was once in the place of operating my business as a solopreneur, so I get it, and I understand that as human beings, we all have a certain level of ego, and being intelligent about that, and just, sometimes having conversations to where you can see a person's body language versus, speaking to them just over the phone or via email, or, those other means of communication helps you to navigate those type of situations. Typically when I'm having those type of conversations, we would do them via Zoom or some other type of visual communication mode. And, they may be saying yes or okay, but I see the tension, rising in their body language. So, I'll use methods that I've learned over time to, navigate the conversation, to make sure that they feel heard and understood, that they recognize that I'm empathetic with where they are, but at the end of the day, I want their success. And in order for them to get to where they desire to be, they're going to have to learn to trust, like one of the most important things when it comes to delegation, they're going to have to learn to trust at some point. And trust means sometimes taking your hands off. Trust sometimes mean, checking your own ego and saying, okay, am I feeling like this is not working because I'm not doing it, or the opposite? Or is it just because it's not working? A lot of times it's because we feel like we know best because we've been in it the longest. However, I've realized, even for myself, like I provide these services for other business owners, but guess what? I also have people that provide services for me. I understand that at times I have to step away because as business owners, we have blind spots when it comes to our own business. So sometimes having someone else to come in and do certain things, to be able to give you a different perspective, to be able to just get a task done. It's like exactly what you need. So, it's just all about letting the human factor be in the midst of the conversation to help they help the person feel comfortable and helping them to understand that the process of delegating, if they're not used to it, if they're not comfortable with it, it may take a little while for them to get there, but they will get there, and it's going to lead to their ultimate success.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And but one of my favorite things is the fact that, that a lot of times when I'm giving people advice, I'm realizing, oh, I should be doing this. So like a lot of the time, and I do a lot of I travel around to a lot of conferences and events, and we do a lot of these mastermind sessions where you sit down and you share about your business, you share about your challenges with other business owners, right? And a lot of the time people are not great at taking their own medicine, right? Like a lot of the time you will see people giving great advice to others, and then when it's their turn, you realize they need the exact same advice that they give to everyone else. So that's that happens on a regular basis. So giving advice and seeing your business from the outside perspective is just super powerful, right?
Absolutely.
And that's why I don't like to just look at it in business. I look at it in personal life as well, right? Like when you're learning new things and when you're learning new skills and so on, like when you go to the gym for the first time, like actually having a coach look at you and see what you're doing. No one is born a business owner. No one is born with all the skills. No one knows automatically what to do. So, everyone is kind of trying to figure stuff out. And if you can help people that are experts at certain things, get on top of your game, that's generally a shortcut, right? Now, obviously, when you are a brand new business owner, you might not be able to afford a lot of that, right? But from a shortcut perspective, and that's also what you will see when you start seeing people who have started multiple businesses. It's not just the fact they've started multiple businesses, but it's the fact that they have resources, right? Because when you have resources, what happens is that you can circumvent a lot of these processes. You can hire a bit more expensive people. You can you can take the right steps, and that just makes the journey much faster, right? But yeah,
absolutely. So you touched on a couple of things and it caused some other thoughts to come up. So one of them is, like, when you are a new business owner, definitely, you're kind of getting in. A lot of people are kind of, pulling their boots by the bootstraps, trying to figure things out. And they are doing all the things. Like, you are the marketing person, you're the administrative person, you are accounting, like you're everything in your business. Two things that I definitely think people can do if they're just starting out and they're not in a place to where they can hire someone, to be in their business all the time. The first thing is that having a mentor or a coach can definitely help alleviate some of the pitfalls, because they can get advice or be able to see them doing certain things that could speed up the process for them in some cases, to where, as you said, a coach can tell you, okay, well, this is what I did and this is what happened. And, if you're open enough to take what they share with you, definitely it will help you along the way. I said I was going to share two things, but I just thought of another one. So the second thing, of course, they can hire a virtual assistant. And they range in, prices. So it just depends. Like, if you're at a place to where you may be able to bring someone in as little as, $200-$300 a month, and then it goes on up from there, depending on, how specialized the person it is. But if you just need help with getting your website off the ground, and the person doesn't have to be like a complete whiz to help you with some of those components, or, dealing with paperwork, dealing with your customer service, like little things that will help you focus on the big picture things. So you can definitely do that. The third thing is figuring out what you could standardize and possibly automate in your business. So, of course, you're not delegating to a person in a sense, but you're still taking things off your plate that could be taking up a lot of time to the point that you're not able to like get out there and market like you want to, or advertise, or, whatever it is that you need to do. I know for myself, one of the things that was so difficult for me when I first started was keeping communication to my audience active. My business grew very fast and I quickly became booked out with clients. And I was full on in the client implementation process where I was working on their businesses. So guess whose business wasn't getting worked on?
Yep.
Which, is like, for me now, I've learned that I need to, be very strict with myself and setting certain days aside just for me. But when you're just starting out, you're trying to keep things going. You're trying to build. So having certain things automated, like just your emails, as a solopreneur, you can take the time to, if you're going to do it yourself, write out 5 or 10 emails at a time in a sitting and put them into your system and schedule them out so that you're not doing that every single day. Anything that will make your life easier until you get to that point to where you can actually delegate it to someone on your team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one caveat I'll put in with that, and because I've seen a few business owners do this, so is make sure that what you spend time and effort on automating is actually good processes, right? Because I've seen people, particularly a little bit technical people, that want to automate everything, but they're automating things that aren't actually great processes or aren't actually great things to be doing in the first place. So I would say just definitely make sure that you're spending time and effort automating things that actually make sense to automate. Right?
Absolutely. You said a mouthful there.
That's excellent. Well, Natanya, it's been a fantastic conversation. Lots of interesting points, and delegation is one of my favorite points for business owners. So very interesting to talk about. So thank you very much for joining us today. Just before we finish, do you have any sort of recommended resources or any particular things you'd recommend for people who are sitting out there just starting out and so on?
So, I have a few things to recommend. I touched on them in the last, few moments of me speaking. When you're just starting out, one of my biggest things that I often tell people in the process of building your business, we're kind of in this culture where everyone is in hustle mode and feeling like you have to be on 24/7. And being in that state, you're definitely going to probably burn out. And before your business has the opportunity to grow, before you have the opportunity to see the cash flow to actually start hiring and scaling your business, it's a possibility it could fizzle out if you're not taking care of yourself. So that's definitely something that I want to recommend to new business owners, especially. I think those that have been in the game for a while have figured it out by now. That you need to have some time for self-care. Like, I don't believe in the 24/7 hustle at all. And then, like I said, definitely looking into potentially hiring a virtual assistant. I will say I am a little partial because I do have, a virtual assisting agency that provides these type of services. And I just see that overwhelming burnout. I've gotten in there and see business owners at the verge of just giving up. So that is something that I would definitely recommend. Whether, it's with my agency or with someone else, find what's affordable for you. There are so many different options. Find what's affordable for you and fits what you need. Like, take a moment. Though it's going to take time, take a moment to really think about what you need help with. Think about what your strengths are. Think about what your passions are. Like, what in your business would you do at any given time, even if you weren't receiving any type of payment or revenue or whatever from it, like that's that thing you really enjoy doing and would do it anyway. Like 9 times out of 10, your passion is there somewhere. And also think about what you're good at doing. All the other stuff, start taking note of that and then list out the priorities and what you need help with. If you're, awful at typing and you hate typing and your business requires a lot of data entry, that may be the first thing that you want to get help with, because most businesses are going to have a lot of data entry regardless of what type of business you have. So those are the few things that I would definitely recommend that new business owners do. And, anyone listening out there, if you are a new business owner, I wish you the best of luck, and just take care of yourself and hone in on your passion, your purpose, and your strengths. And I think you'll do well from there.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for sharing today, and thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I've enjoyed our conversation, and I thank you for the invite as well.
Excellent. And to the audience, thank you very much for hanging on all the way to the end. We'll be back again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Mad Singers Management Podcast. Please leave a review. It means the world to us. You can also learn more about management at madsingers.com.